Guys and girls, what would be your response if your partner proposed open relationship? Why would you wait a quarter century to suggest this? Nobody else wants to sleep with us now, stop it. My response wouldn't be that, but it would be similarly confused. He works all the time, I work all the time. We have 2 small children, his mother lives with us. When exactly are either of us supposed to find time to date other people? I'm trying to imagine how I'd actually feel emotionally if he asked me, and my mind just keeps getting hung up on the logistics of it. We're too tired, there's no time, that would take way too much work, and that alone makes me not interested. My initial reaction if he asked wouldn't be who did you meet, but have you lost your mind? There are only 24 hours in a day. Everybody here is saying they already have somebody in mind, but that is not always the case. I spoke to my fiancé about opening our relationship up way back in August because I miss having female companionship. He said he wasn't interested, but I was welcome to find a girlfriend. So I joined some online dating sites, had a few matches, but never met anyone. Our relationship hit a bump, and I shut everything down. I have 0 dating profiles now, and no longer talk to anybody outside of our relationship, despite him suggesting repeatedly that I should invite a friend over for the night. Now, I will admit that maybe my situation is a one-off, but I suggested it because I miss being with a woman, but I don't want to not be with him. And then I pulled it back off the table because my priority is the relationship I have with him. And if that isn't settled, then I will not put that in jeopardy by bringing another person in. I'm sure we will revisit it again in the future, but I am not, and will not ever be using this as a cover to cheat. My husband and I talked about it when my back first got screwed up, and between the pain and depression, our previously overactive life was near non-existent. No, that's not how I destroyed my back, directly, and both of us had the same reservations. The idea of opening our relationship to having with another person could be something we could go for, if there was a guarantee that it would be only. That was something that we both felt could never be guaranteed. You can't help who you fall in love with. And since people are able to fall in love with more than one person, I believe it is completely logical that you can fall in love with a second person while still being in love with the first. And that just makes things messy. Not to mention the harm you might cause a third party if they are the one who fell in love with one of you. Nah, too messy. So now you are waiting, you don't have resentments. Can I ask what's your age? Is it maybe you had a lot of earlier, and no longer feel the strong need for it in your life now, and there are other priorities? I have pain during penetrative, so in the beginning of the relationship, I told my partner that I don't want to have frequently cause it's painful for me, and I generally don't have high libido, and probably we are incompatible, and we should not get into a relationship. He said exactly the same thing you said, that he loves me and is fine with his hands, and can have a less relationship in the worst case scenario towards the end of the 4-year relationship before he kind of ghosted me. He started crying about wasting his 20s without cause of me. I don't know what hurt more, that he was feeling that tie about our life, or that he didn't feel secure in the relationship enough to be open about it much earlier. I think he overpromised. Husband and I had a similar conversation, with similar results, when my sister opened her marriage and later closed it. That's a tale and a half. I don't like to share my partner. Neither does husband. I don't want anyone else and would feel hurt if he wanted anyone else. Monogamy is foundational to loyalty for us. Open marriages can work for some folks if they're not opened under duress. Recipe for disaster right there. And the couple is not trying to conceive children while the marriage is opened. You want to ensure the chosen life partner rather than a temporary fling to be the father in that situation. Opening things seems to work better for middle-aged swingers, or for folks that have set up a relationship with these foundations in the first place. I suggested it to my partner a while back. He has a very high drive. The medication I need to be on has lowered mine considerably. I wanted him to not resent me because I just didn't want very much anymore. We very much thought about it, even to the point of making up rules and setting standards. In the end, he came to me and said he didn't want to do it. I kind of had the opposite experience. I was on a medication that ramped my drive way up, and his was fairly low. He blamed low testosterone, but who knows? I suggested an open relationship, but admittedly, I didn't go about it the right way at all. And I should have known that the relationship was winding down before I even brought it up. We were disconnected in more ways than just drives. Probably break it off. I understand that monogamy isn't for everyone, and I'm not gonna force it on anyone. But personally, I'm not interested in open marriage. And if my husband wanted one, the marriage might be too far gone. Even if he's okay staying monogamous, I may spend the rest of the marriage stressing over whether I'm enough, and wondering if he's getting what he wants behind my back. If his needs aren't being met, I'd want to have that conversation long before it gets to the point where an open marriage even crosses his mind. I would never get it off my mind that my partner actually wants to other people. Call me insecure, but I can't possibly take it. People are better off having that conversation very early or even before they enter a relationship. My daughter's dad tried this and then proceeded to give me an ultimatum. I was about 10 months postpartum and my libido hadn't really recovered yet. Not to mention I was at the peak of my PPD. It wasn't a totally dead bedroom, but not nearly as often as we used to. He kept asking me for a threesome, which was great timing considering my self-esteem was already at an all-time low. So naturally, I refused and told him to never ask me again. He then said he either needs an open relationship to satisfy his needs or he wanted to break up. So, I told him he's not getting my permission to cheat on me and we're done. We still lived together for a few months for financial reasons, but from that point on we were roommates and co-parents. He still gives surprised Pikachu face at the fact I'm cold to him. This blows my goddamn mind. My wife and I have been married since 2015, and we met in 2008. We both have ridiculous drives. It's what made the beginning absolutely ridiculous. I'm talking every day for the first year of the relationship. Did not miss a single day, and I can remember my being in rough shape as a result. Fast forward to today, and we just had our third child in the summer. He's 8 months old, and we have 2 older girls, 5 years and 3 years. Parenting means we are super tired, and I know all about the hormones that come with and after pregnancy, and how much that can impact your drive. We have not had since she was pregnant. We usually get started back up 10 to 12 months after the birth because she takes a while to get back into the mood of things. That's fine, that's how it works. So think about a man in my situation. Pressuring the out of the mother of their child for is one of the most infuriating, tone-deaf, disrespectful things I can ever imagine. You're much better off. As a dude who's experienced a partner's interest in completely vanishing from a relationship, never to return, almost overnight, I'm heavily conflicted here. Maybe suggesting a threesome is callous, but aside from that, it sounds like he communicated about as well as he possibly could have about his needs not being met. How long does the guy have to wait on the promise of things changing in the future? Indefinitely. People are commenting really disrespectful and dismissive things like dudes just can't use their hand for a little while for a situation that will change. How long does it have to go before we become suspicious that it won't? My girl was insisting I wasn't the problem even though it was utterly obvious that I was. She wouldn't even allow me to send flirts or raise the topic of anything remotely Yule for 4 months. I know how hard that did with me and how worthless and undesirable it made me feel. The final month of the relationship was the darkest place my mind has ever been. Eventually, I had to confront her about it and get out of the relationship when I was directly told nothing would change so I could slowly start feeling worth something again. And people are saying that we need to put up with that for 10 months without even our thoughts going astray? Kai would need more details. Open relationships take a lot of trust and communication. There needs to be equity on both sides. I would ask questions like, why is this being brought up now? Has something changed? How do you feel about each of us having another partner? Or is this just a you thing? What happens when those partners want other partners? 2. I would likely ask questions about gender preferences and how we would handle testing for STDs. Is this just a Yule thing? Or more like a full-blown relationship? How much time will be allocated to this relationship? Will these relationships all be separate and distinct? If I had children, I would ask about what, if anything, would be shared with them. If this discussion becomes uncomfortable, then the current relationship probably needs to be reassessed, and maybe counseling should be considered, if the plan is to stay together, open or not. This is where I'm at with my partner. They have more needs than I do, and for personal reasons I can't accommodate for a lot of them. We've bounced the idea of an open relationship around, and are very open about our feelings and boundaries concerning ourselves, each other, and other people. So I don't feel that threatened by the idea, or do I believe they're cheating or willing to cheat. We might look for an outside opinion on it when we've figured out our own positions more. So far we've laid out how it could hypothetically work, but I don't think we're going to move forward with anything unless we're both certain. I would ask them why, listen, and determine from there whether to break up or say a cautious no, and watch their actions. How they ask is important too. That's a very thin, tight rope. There is a difference between asking if something would be a possibility and deciding it is what you need to do. Worth investigating. My wife asked, and after investigation it turned out that it was not just an idle question, but instead something she has decided is a core part of her identity, and that there is a particular guy who she feels she needs to pursue a relationship with. Since I am not open to being in an open relationship, and because not asking until you are that far along is a huge red flag for communication, I have made it clear that we will need to go separate ways. But it was worth having the conversation. It could also be an abstract question where they are open to hearing no and accepting that no as the condition of being with you. It depends entirely on what their idea of an open relationship looks like. From my understanding, healthy and fulfilling ethical, non-monogamous relationships require lots of open and honest communication and high emotional intelligence. Most of the time when I see people proposing to open the relationship, it's because the already at communication and thinking around will solve their problems. I would be open to it if we were to discuss the rules and boundaries within our relationship at length before anything happened. I would want frequent check-ins to see how each partner is feeling and see if any adjustments need to be made to the rules. I would also want to be in couples counseling maybe once a month or so with a counselor that support non-monogamous relationships to help us work through any obstacles. I can definitely see the benefits of an open relationship, but I can't even find a man with an IQ higher than a dog, so one that has enough for an open relationship seems like a unicorn. Frankly, I think you cannot go from a monogamous relationship to a polyamorous one. If a relationship will be open or non-monogamous, it needs to start like that and ensure both. All parties know what the nature of the relationship is. Or at least both be aware and open about an open relationship as a possibility. I'm more open to the ideas of unconventional relationships. But if my partner and I were exclusive, but they changed from "you're the only one for me" to "we should open the relationship," I would instantly think they found someone else and wanted to be with them without feeling like they were cheating. My relationship went from mono to poly, and we have both reached theirs of inter- and intrapersonal fulfillment that we never realized weren't met. I was 17 when I got with him, Christian, and just out of high school, so had no concept of alternative relationship styles. Neither of us were ever possessive or jealous, though. We always had excellent communication together and security in the relationship, and would often cuddle, subtly flirt with other close friends with no issues. Eventually, we just found that polyamory suited us well. Interactions don't have to have fixed limits on love. That philosophy suits everyone I'm intimate with very, very well. So it's possible. Especially starting from a place where monogamy is the only option you were initially aware of. This is a criterion that needs to be brought up as a feature at the onset of the relationship, not midway through it, because there are reasonable expectations of exclusivity being the default feature of a romantic relationship. It is an unfair burden on the person being asked to transition the relationship into an open one. It puts them into an untenable position whereby they cannot say no without being made to feel like they are the one responsible for the eventual souring of the relationship. Let's say they say yes. Is it truly an enthusiastic yes? If it is, then fine. But I suspect the vast majority won't be saying yes and feeling good about it. Let's say they say no. Then the dynamic will change. The person who wants to others will still want to go out and others. That doesn't change the mindset that put them on the path to wanting an open relationship. So they'll either just cheat covertly or they'll stay faithful, but will build resentment over the restrictions put on them by being refused to open the relationship. This resentment will eventually build and ruin the relationship. At the same time, the person who doesn't want the open relationship will lose trust and feel less secure about the relationship, and will also have resentment and trust issues stemming from knowing their partner wants to outside the relationship. This will create tension and friction and ruin the relationship. This is what we call a lose-lose crossroads. If you bring this issue up, the general understanding here is that this is a need you will need to pursue, and you are willing to sacrifice this current relationship in order to get your way on this issue. In my personal relationship, it would be a red flag. We're both very possessive, meaning we're still fairly early and insecure about the relationship. We're less than a year, so to have that idea pushed so early would make me feel very strange. In my eyes, we're still in the honeymoon phase, and we haven't seen each other's worsts and bests entirely. If her and I were a few years deep, complete with unspoken trust, then I'd simply say no, and that I'd like to usually experiment with her instead, or her just having with others. Open relationships just seem like a recipe for disaster in most cases. IMO. In this relationship, having been cheated on already, I'd probably panic and not react well. After trust has been broken and we've spent all this time repairing, I'd be assuming the worst without even meaning to. If it was brought up before, any dishonesty and betrayal might be different. That said, I've had an open relationship before with someone else, and I'm not sure who brought it up first, but we discussed it and made rules for it and tried it out. It worked well for years. To be honest, I would feel a little sad and disappointed that he would want to have with other people. Most likely would lead to breakup. I don't have anything against open relationships if both parties are into it from the start, but that's also something I don't personally want for my relationship. I just can't see myself in a relationship where the other party has other partners, and I am so insecure that it is a miracle if I get one person who wants to be with me, let alone have multiple partners at once. I couldn't do it, for a variety of reasons. I'm a male. Even if my wife wanted to bring a female into the relationship, I would say no. And I know for sure if she wanted to bring a male into it, I'd say no. As a matter of fact, if she wanted a male, that would make me highly suspicious. Maybe it's insecurity on my part, but I know for sure I'd say no. I had a friend who allowed another male into the relationship, and my friend's wife wound up leaving him and marrying the other guy. You gotta be really happy and confident with yourself and an independent thinker. You should probably be that way anyway, right? It can work, but it's a lot of work and is oftentimes swimming against the stream, so to speak, because the societal norm is the monogamy escalator. So you'll be dealing with those outside pressures as well. You only live once. If you want to give it a go just to see what happens, do it. I did it for 10 years. I think it can be done. But I must confess, ultimately I'm happier in my present monogamous relationship. It's fine just as long as they play it safe and get checked often to minimize my risk of getting an STD. The last relationship I was in, it never did come up, but the agreement was if you're interested enough in someone, just let me know, and don't be stupid about it. Use protection and whatever. Also, for the record, I'm rarely interested in people and wouldn't be the one taking advantage of the open relationship aspect. But I don't really care if I'm with someone who does. You'll attraction and love, dedication aren't the same thing. Like, I don't prefer it because it does open up that risk of STDs, but that's the only caveat for me. Even if someone left me for another partner, you know that's just the way stuff goes sometimes. Better to keep things honest than keep dirty secrets or be miserable. I'm kinda surprised about how nearly everyone is so strongly against this, like flat out divorce. I get it, in a way, but was hoping to see a few comments on the other end of the spectrum. Are non-monogamous relationships so rare? I think it's like a utility thing. You kinda understand what side you're on, and live your life accordingly. There's always people who discover themselves later on in life, but for the most part, you know where you stand. Yeah, non-monogamous is pretty rare, not to say it can't work, but the people I know have tried, are trying. Well, I wouldn't consider dating them or joining their car crash personal lives. You do you though. If that's what makes you happy, who cares if no one else agrees? It's your life. My ex used to bring it up every now and then. I wasn't really into open relationships, but she made me feel like I was closed-minded for not being into open relationship. She was using Tinder when she was dating me and was in constant touch with the guy she had a random hookup once. I still feel weird in my stomach thinking about it. I had a very blank reaction when she used to bring it up. I didn't know how to react when she brought it up. I used to feel betrayed. It was my first ever relationship, and I hadn't even heard of open relationship before that. I get a lot of for this, but I think they are one of the worst ideas possible. I'm poly. And whenever I see monos try open relationships during an already established relationship, it's a nightmare. You either start with that foundation, and it works beautifully, or you stick to each other. The half-stepping halfway through is disaster waiting to happen. If it's truly that important to one of the people, and they've done soul-searching to reach that point, accept you're likely incompatible and it's time to bounce. Although I appreciate you being honest to me about this, and I do think that open relationships are just as valid as closed ones, I do not personally feel comfortable with it, nor is it something I want to pursue. We can try to think of other options if you think this is a step we must take, but we might also consider that trying to split now in good terms may be better than either of us trying to force a change on the other's behavior, and possibly regretting it afterwards. I do not wish that, but we must consider if it would be healthier than trying to impose change. I also know this might not be a discussion we are ready to have right now, so we can let this topic sit down for a while as I process your proposal and you process my answer, so we do not say things we might not mean or harmful misunderstandings. Cop, are you about to ask your partner if they're down to open the relationship? I see this question posted every few days, it seems. You might have better luck looking at subreddits for ethical non-monogamy or poly. If your partner chooses to part ways when you suggest an open relationship, you should understand that it is a very reasonable response, as it is ridiculously important to be compatible with your romantic partner in that subject. Get more involved in the community, and you'll see that even people enjoying wonderfully healthy poly or open relationships would tell you that it is more than understandable to leave someone over this. Hope things work out. Best of luck. I think it would have to be a frank discussion of our needs and how we want to meet those needs. People proposing polyamory or open relationship structures often try and enter into those formats as a crutch for the existing relationship, when in reality you have to be much more communicative and strong as a couple for those structures to succeed. Monogamy is the point of relationships. It's the safest and easiest structure. Poly is real hard, and everyone who's poly that I know has hard feelings at times that need to be worked through with a lot of vulnerability and patience. It can be incredibly rewarding, but it is not a tool to fix a failing monogamous partnership. I'd be okay with an open relationship if I got into it agreeing to that from the start. I would probably have completely different emotions regarding that relationship than a monogamous one. If I was asked many years into a relationship that was monogamous, I would probably be hurt and think about ending things. If you're all of a sudden having the urge to sleep with other people, chances are if I say no, it's only a matter of time before you do it behind my back, if you haven't already. So I probably wouldn't trust them anymore. And no trust I know relationship for me. A lot of these comments about breaking up at the mere question of an open relationship is kind of boggling my mind. Like, I understand it's not for you, and that's totally okay. Just communicate that and even articulate how opposed you are to it. Having such a visceral reaction to it makes me wonder if your partners feel like they can open up to you all about difficult subjects. For a lot of people, an open relationship isn't something they would even consider, but eventually they'll find themselves unsatisfied in some way, so they bring up the idea. Instead of saying you drop them like a rock, try communicating and asking them why they want this to begin with. Maybe you'll both find an alternative that satisfies both parties.